Archaeologists were baffled by timber fragments found inside a collapsed Norse barn in Greenland. The wood was entirely wrong. The species and grain patterns all pointed to a forest 2,000 miles away across the open ocean in North America. This discovery raised a major question. How did this wood end up in a 12th century Viking village? For many years, the accepted history of the Vikings in America was a neat and simple tale. The Norse supposedly landed at Meadows around the year 1000, established a settlement, and then abandoned it within about a decade, never returning. Historians and even any archaeologists viewed this brief presence as a single road trip, a fleeting glance at America before they retreated to Greenland and Iceland. The consensus was that the Vikings saw the New World and simply walked away. But what if this widely accepted timeline is completely wrong? The root of the mystery was wood. The Norse settlers in Greenland needed massive amounts of timber for everything: their ships, houses, workshops, and furniture. Yet Greenland itself was nearly treeless, offering only small, unusable dwarf birch and willow. For generations, experts assumed they simply relied on driftwood carried by the Arctic currents or imported supplies from Norway. While the old sagas mentioned trips to Markland for wood, these accounts were generally disregarded as myth or, at best, quick supply runs. That assumption was challenged when Dr. Elizabeth Goodman's Dwyer and her team at the University of Iceland began analyzing over 5,000 wooden artifacts from Norse sites. Using advanced cellular analysis, they confirmed most wood was Norwegian or Siberian, but then they uncovered something completely unexpected: the outliers. Picture Bjorn, a Norse merchant, on a Greenland beach in 1130. He watches his crew unload lumber from a trading ship that just completed a rough, 2-week crossing of the Davis Strait from North America. For Bjorn, this is routine. It is his 7th voyage, a journey his father and his father before him made. This wasn't exploration or a heroic tale. It was a crucial business enterprise passed down through 3 generations, relying on the coastal forests of Labrador. The cargo was vital construction timber: hemlock, oak, and beech. These species did not grow in the Norse world. Crucially, the evidence confirms this wood was not random driftwood. Instead, it consisted of carefully selected, freshly felled logs, cut from living trees with metal axes. How do we know? Imagine the landing site on the rugged Labrador coast, where dense forest met the rocky shore. A crew of 8 men worked swiftly through the woods. They weren't explorers, but professionals. They knew exactly which trees to fell. Having inherited the knowledge of the best timber, stands their fathers and grandfathers used. Felling massive hemlocks and dragging them to the beach took 3 days. The dangerous 2-week sail back to Greenland was just part of the job. This raises a crucial question: why risk repeated, difficult crossings instead of simply using imported Norwegian wood or local driftwood? The analysis of ancient DNA completely changed the picture. This North American timber didn't just pop up at one Greenland site. It was found across multiple locations, and the dates ranged from the 11th century to potentially the early 13th century. If history maintains that the Vikings abandoned America around 1020, why did North American wood keep appearing in Greenland for the next 2 centuries? The only logical answer is that the Vikings never actually stopped going. Dr. Goodman's team identified 28 distinct pieces of North American wood. Crucially, the varying age and weathering of this wood strongly suggested it arrived in Greenland at different times, across multiple decades or even centuries. The implication here is staggering. This wasn't just a brief abandoned settlement. This was sustained contact. The true breakthrough came from analyzing the DNA preserved within birch bark tar, the ancient pitch Vikings used to waterproof their ships. Researchers extracted DNA from tar samples found on timber across 3 Greenland sites. The genetic signatures matched not just North American tree species, but specific regional populations: hemlock DNA from the Gulf of St. Lawrence and oak DNA from forests near the Bay of Fundy. Radiocarbon dating, the tar samples completely reshaped the historical timeline. The earliest dated to 990 AD, actually predating Leif Erikson's famous voyage. The latest dated to 1250 AD, over 2 centuries after Meadows closed. The Vikings hadn't made one voyage. They'd made dozens, perhaps hundreds of routine trips to America. Further genetic analysis of human remains unearthed at Norse Greenland sites revealed another stunning detail. DNA, markers from indigenous North American populations, appeared in the Norse genetic profiles of multiple individuals across different time periods. This evidence proves the Vikings weren't just visiting to cut timber. They were interacting with indigenous peoples repeatedly over generations, trading, fighting, and in rare cases, possibly intermarrying. They weren't explorers who came, saw, and left. They were commuters. This discovery forces us to rewrite the history of North American contact. Lonso Meadows was likely just a short-lived headquarters, but the resource voyages continued long after it closed. The Norse didn't need permanent cities. They only needed seasonal camps and temporary harbors where they could fell timber and load cargo. We don't know how many of these sites existed, as most were likely simple structures deliberately dismantled, leaving almost no trace. This revised understanding also aligns with indigenous oral histories from the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk peoples, who tell of pale-skinned traders arriving in great canoes with wings, stories that may preserve memories of generations of Norse contact. It also confirms the sagas, which mention multiple resource expeditions to Markland, proving they were accurate records, not exaggerations. Historians miss this because they searched for permanent colonies, like those built later by other Europeans. The Norse treated North America differently, as a distant, valuable resource zone too dangerous and remote for mass colonization. Their approach was like modern fishing fleets, making regular trips without establishing permanent bases. The connection to North America finally collapsed only when the Greenland settlements themselves failed in the 1400s. By 1492, the link was largely forgotten, but the DNA, preserved in wood, tar, and bone, proved sustained contact over at least 250 years. The Icelandic sagas describe frequent journeys to a place called Markland to harvest timber, but for a long time, historians dismissed these accounts as embellishments. We now know they were actually accurate records of a routine commercial operation. The reason we missed this reality is that we were looking for the wrong clues. Archaeologists searched for permanent colonies, similar to later European settlements, but the Norse had a different strategy. They treated North America as a remote resource zone, valuable for its raw materials, but too hazardous for large-scale colonization. Their presence was more like a modern fishing fleet, making seasonal trips to extract resources without building lasting cities. This transatlantic link only severed when the Greenland colonies themselves collapsed in the 15th century. A combination of a cooling climate, the devastation of the Black Death, and shifting trade networks eventually isolated Greenland. By the time Columbus set sail, the Viking voyages were remembered only as myths. However, the DNA evidence found in timber, ship tar, and human remains tells a definitive story of sustained contact between Greenland and North America, lasting over 250 years, a period of history longer than the United States has existed. This leaves us with a startling reality. If these voyages were a routine part of Norse life for centuries, what else is still hidden? We have to wonder about the lost camps, the trade with indigenous neighbors, and the families that bridged two worlds. If Greenland hadn't collapsed, the Viking presence might have lasted until Columbus. DNA provided the facts, but it also uncovered much deeper mysteries. If this changed how you see Viking history, hit that like button and subscribe for more DNA discoveries that rewrite our past. What do you think? Could there still be undiscovered Norse sites in North America? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.